business calculus that you have to know how to do. So in this class, we just sort of prepare students, and it helps with the algebra skill. All right, so on this one, let's just work these together. So we're going to do the difference quotient for these two problems. What you want to start with on your paper, go ahead and write this down. The difference quotient is f of x plus h. This is page 11. We left off at the bottom of page 11. Okay, on 2.1. Okay, so we're going to get that set up. We're going to do that on both of these problems. I'm going to get it set up and then let you try to crunch it out yourself, okay? All right. So what we're going to do on this is when you get this set up on your paper, write it like this. Write 2 brackets and put the whole thing over h. All right, what I was showing you last time is whatever I give you goes there. All right, what goes here when it says f of x plus h, what does that tell you to do? What does f of x plus h mean? Tell me. Change the x to x plus h. So you write this same thing, but instead of saying x minus 4, you say x plus h minus 4. Okay, then you're going to need to simplify that. Okay, and while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and set up number 2, and then I'll walk around and see how many of you can get to the end of this. So number 2, you're going to go like this. Again, start by putting 2 brackets, because the first thing you got to be able to do is get these things set up okay. All right. Tell me what goes in the second bracket on problem number 2. X squared minus 3x. Now, the first bracket, what are you going to change? The x to x plus h. Good. Write it exactly the same way. So instead of saying x squared, say x plus h squared. Instead of saying minus 3x, say that. So get that written down, start working on it, see what you get. What will happen is at the end of the problem, that h in the denominator will cancel out. So I want to see how many people can run through the algebra on that. So I'll give you a few minutes to work on that. Then I'm going to give another handout on this. That's kind of a supplement to this section. Okay. Now, what I'm going to hand out while you're working on this is the rest of 2.1. I wanted to do a couple of like one big financial example on here. So you just add this to 2.1. Okay. If you picked up, I think, a 2.1 on Tuesday, this may already be in the packet. Yep. Did you sign? You're fine. That's my hold on there. Why I did that, I don't know. I may not have heard you or something. Just take the parentheses off. That's x plus h minus 4. You can see that's a minus. So it's going to be minus x plus 4. I won't do that. X plus h minus 4, there's no like terms. So you don't do anything, can't do anything else with that. You're going to need one of these and just pass that out. Okay. And while you're finishing, who didn't pick up a written assignment too? You would get just got here. Okay. What's that? Oh, that's extra. Okay. Okay, we'll keep working on it. I want to walk around and see where algebra skills are. I'm totally right. Now, what's h over h? What's anything divided by itself? There you go. There you go. Good. There you go. So what happens is the 4's cross out, the x's cross out, so you're just left with looks like you'd just be left with h over h. Okay.
Wait, don't they cross out after that?
No, not until the end. So you cross the 4's out. Now, because see here, what is going to happen when you have that minus? You're going to have minus x plus 4.
Isn't h over h?
Yes, that's the answer. But you end up getting h over h. They cross out the like terms. What you ought to do is write one more step. When you see that minus bracket x minus 4, it becomes minus x plus 4. Okay, so you end up with h over h. Got it? Let's write down. Okay, now you should. Okay, that's good on that one. I'll go over that. You got a problem on that one. I'm not sure it is, but go back and look at what you've done. So what happens on this one is the x's cross out. So do the 4's, because that's a minus 4, so it's plus 4. You end up with h over h. So you get 1. Yeah, okay, h over h 1. I'm going to see if that one's right.
That one?
See, so I got right here, and I wasn't sure.
You did it for me.
Take out the h.
When you do x plus h squared, you go write it out for us.
I don't know, it's not just yeah. Or is it just this one?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's either, so we got this.
So we'll figure out
I don't see your x plus h. I don't think you have that, what I wrote on the screen on the x plus h squared minus 3x plus h. You gotta get that one, okay? That's what you're working at. That's how
I think I figured.
what you get. That is correct.
Yeah, I'm still gonna do 2.
That's correct. Now that is 1, because you end up with h over h. So it becomes 1.
Did you take out the h like I thought, you know?
You want to get what's down on what's on the
I
screen.
think the first one to do it.
Yeah,
Because I'm just gonna cross it out. Because you gotta cross out the other
Yeah,
side.
so that when you FOIL that, you would have x squared plus xh plus xh plus h squared.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll find it.
Okay? And you gotta get rid of all your parentheses and all that stuff, right?
Did you get that?
Okay.
No?
That's 3x, 3h.
Look at this. That's one thing that you're struggling with. Minus 3x
Yeah, you're right.
becomes
It's
plus 4. That might be all it is. That's all I see anyway.
See that?
Sometimes you got to make the same mistake several times before you start correcting yourself. So that's what you got to kind of watch on now. Okay, let me show you a couple things about this first one. Yeah, go ahead.
What formula is that for business?
This is called the difference quotient.
When do you use
In calculus for what's called a rate of change. Okay, when you're looking at a function and looking at how things are changing. Okay, for instance, you might look at revenue. Revenue may change constantly, which is linear, or it may be more of a curve. So you can use this to figure out what that rate is at any point in time. That's what you'll get to. Okay. All right, so let's look at this one. Now, a lot of you heard me say h over h, and I wasn't sure if you knew how I did this, but really I don't need these parentheses. I don't need that first bracket. Those are all unlike terms. Here's where some of you are struggling. See, that's a minus x, and what's minus 4? So you need to write this step on your paper. You don't need to just cancel stuff out until you write that out. Okay, then what happens is the x's are going to cross out, the 4's are going to cross out, so you're going to have h over h, and anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, now I'll teach you a trick. See if you catch on to this. Can you tell me what kind of function f of x equals x minus 4 is? Linear. Can you tell me what the slope of this is? That's a trick. Okay. The purpose of this is to get you learning how to use this, but you can tell you're right. This one I can't teach you how to tell you right unless you're a calculus student. So let's take a look at this then. So where some of you are struggling a little bit, what you have to do with the part that I highlighted in yellow is you have to FOIL it. I just do this on scratch paper and multiply that out. You're going to do that so often that you'll probably get it memorized. Okay, so that's just the first term is x squared. Outside term is plus xh. Inside term is also xh. And then the last term, h times h, is h squared, right? That's FOILing. Now, these are like terms, so that comes together to make 2xh. 1 plus 1 is 2. So I'm going to replace the FOILing with what I got. I got x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Okay, if you didn't get that yet, go ahead and get that written down, and we'll start putting this together. Okay? All right, so that's what the result of that part is. All right, is everybody with me there? Okay? Don't just do x squared plus h squared. You have to write it out twice in FOIL. Okay, what are you going to do here? That's going to be a distributive property, so that's going to be what? Minus 3x minus 3h. So what you should have next is minus 3x minus 3h. Okay, we're getting closer. Now you're going to see this over and over again. Tell me what this minus does to everything in here. Change the signs. That becomes minus plus. Okay? Some of you are kind of overlooking that and not getting that right. So that's going to be minus x squared plus 3x. Okay? So if you got to this point, you know, that's ultimately where you got to get to. You got everything multiplied out. Now what are you going to do? Well, a bunch of stuff crosses out. The x squareds cancel. The 3x's cancel. So what we're left with is 2xh plus h to the second minus 3h all over h. So if you did the algebra correctly, that's what you should get. Okay? Now let me ask this. We did this last time. What do you need to do to the numerator to make that h cancel out? Because it'll always cancel out if you're doing it right. Factor, right? Okay, you take an h out. So you're just going to take an h out of the top. So that would be h parentheses 2x plus h minus 3 all over h. Now the h's cross out, so the answer you should have got was 2x plus h minus 3. How many people got that? About half? Okay. Some of the papers I looked at were, the mistake was either the FOILing or there was a sign somewhere in there. So that's how you got to handle that then. Okay? All right? Okay. Now you guys, if you ever get a little behind on this, you can get your phone out and take a picture. I don't care you do that. You just need to, you know, get it on your notes. So I don't care if you do that at any time. I don't want a student just sitting in my class doing this the whole time, though. Click, 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 click. I mean, I want you to use that if you get behind, okay? All right? All right, so does anybody have a question about what you just did? That's a problem area in this class for a lot of students, but it's important to build the algebra skill up by learning this difference quotient. For now, that's the purpose of that. Okay, now the extra handout, everybody needs to make sure you have that because I didn't pass this out until today, so I wanted to add on a business application, just one big application that's super important to students in this class, so we're going to go through this. Does everybody have this? This is actually just page 12 that I passed out today. Everybody got it? Okay, come up. There's one right here. I think. Yeah, there's one right there. I just have a few left. Okay, so what you want to, the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you know these formulas. I never give you any of these formulas because if you're a business major, you have to know how to find profit. Okay, I mean, you have to know how to find revenue. That's so fundamental to it that you have to know those. We've already talked about this. This is a linear cost function. And what you always want to know is you have fixed costs and you have variable costs. Okay, so it goes like that. The price demand function goes like this. We use a lowercase p, and then what you have is you have m as a slope, and then it's just x items, and then p per item. Now, usually this is going to be given. You're not going to spend much time in this class finding that. The way that economists do this is they do it statistically. They collect data, and then they do stuff kind of like that regression on a calculator. They do computers to come up with mathematical models. So that's generally going to be given to you. Okay, now our revenue. Let's think about a revenue. Let's say that your business is you're selling lemonade. And let's say that if you're going to calculate the revenue, what two things do you have to know? If your business is lemonade, you got to know how much a cup of lemonade costs and then how many you sell, right? So it's 50 cents a cup and you sell 20 of them. What do? You multiply them, right? So what revenue is it's just the number of items you sell times the price per item. Okay, so revenue is XP, and it's written like this. This is the main formula you need to know. What I did to get this second one is I replaced P with M minus NX from the previous formula. So what you need to know is you need to know this definitely, and you also got to know that. Okay, the price demand is mostly given to you. Okay, what does a business do to find its profit? What do they got to know? Revenue, what's that? All the money you take in, then what? Okay, your business costs money. Your lemonade stand costs money because you got to buy ice and cups and lemonade and stuff, right? Okay, so that's what you do is you take the revenue minus the cost. Now that's really what you need to know is that formula. The second formula is plugging some stuff in. So I'm just replacing the revenue with this, and I'm replacing the cost with that. That's linear. So what you need to know is you need to know mainly this formula, and that formula. Those are the ones that you absolutely have to know, all right? And I won't ever give those to you because they're fundamental to what you're studying, okay? So what we're going to do on this example, we're going to need the calculator to do this first part right here. So we're going to do a scatter plot of this first of all. So first of all, what you're given on this is millions of dollars, and then that says X million chips can be sold, and then you have a price. This right here is, you might want to make a note of this, this is the price demand function. All right, so we got that. Like I said, that's usually going to be given to you. Okay, this right here is a domain. So this price demand function only works for items, X being between 1 and 20. That's what that is. Okay, so we're going to do two things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a scatter plot. Okay, we're not going to do that on the calculator yet. We are in a minute. But for now, what I want you to do is we're just going to create a graph, and we need to label what everything means in here then. So these are chips for microcomputers. So X is going to be, we would just say X million, and then you can just say chips. Now you need to say what it is, okay? You don't just put X and Y, you got to tell me what it is, and it's important that that's in millions, okay? So when somebody reads your graph, they know what it means, okay? And then this is the price. P is just going to be the price, and that's in dollars. Okay, so I'll just say in dollars like that. Okay, so you got to do that. Now what we're going to do is the x-axis is only going to go from 1 to 20. So what I'm going to have you do on this is just kind of go 1, and then you can just kind of estimate the rest. You don't have to go a notch all the way up to 20 unless you want to. So I'm just going to go 5, 10, 15, 20. That's the way you're generally going to do that's like that. Okay, you can even leave the 1 off if you want to. And then your price, the biggest price is 72. So to me, it would make a lot of sense to make sure I go up to about 80. And then you can scale that however you want to. I'm going to go like maybe 20, 40, 60 like that. Okay, sometimes I see students put like 80 notches on that. That's unnecessary. We want to scale that a correct way. Okay, so now what you do is you just plot your data. So you have 172 over 1. Just approximate about where 72 is. Go over 4, about 63. Go over 9 and about, what was that, 48-ish. And then 14 and then up 33. And then 20 and up 15. Okay, does that look like it's kind of making a line? Yeah, okay, so that's linear. Okay, so, and sometimes when you study data, sometimes it's linear, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's nonlinear. So that would be what we call the scatter plot. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and get your calculator out, and then we'll run through this. Again, we learned this last time. Okay, and hopefully I got the calculators working okay. Several of you were having trouble with your calculators. So what we're going to do is, and if you ever forget the keystrokes, it's in the handout of 1.3. So we're going to go Stat, Edit, and you always need to clear your lists out. So I've shown you this before. I'm going to show you one more time. To clear out L1, you go up to it, get it blinking, press Clear, press Enter. because you don't want to type over it. You want to just clear the whole thing out of there. That's real important. Then L2, again, go up to L2, press clear, then press enter. Okay, that's the way I always clear my lists. Okay, everybody with me there? Okay, that's important you know how to do that. Now, put your X's in, so that's 1, 4, 9, 14, and 20, like that, and then you can go over and put your p-values in, the prices. So 72, 63, 48, 33, and 15. All right, so you want to get your data in like that. A lot of times you'll get an error, so you got to make sure you have the same amount of X's as you do Y's. They have to match like that. All right, everybody with me on that? Okay. Now, what you do, we did this last class, is you press your Stat button, and then you go to Calc, and then this is where you're going to do linear regression. Since you can tell it makes a line, it's a linear regression. Now, before I do this, does that slope look negative or positive based on the graph we drew? It's negative. It's sloping down. Okay, so we better get a negative on this. So you just go there, press enter. Most of you are going to see this X1, Y1 should say L1, L2, and then just go down to where it says calculate, and then press enter. Okay, and out comes the linear equation. Okay, in this case, it's really nice. So what we have is Y equals negative 3x plus 75. Those of you who are doing this with me, tell me if you got that. Okay, it makes me feel good, okay, because sometimes I don't see and I put something in wrong. So that's our equation. Go ahead. Okay, here's what you need to do then. You need to check, go back to Stat Edit, and check your data real carefully. Okay, because probably what's going on is you may not see it, but maybe you don't have your data put in right. What did you get, by the way? So, I mean, that's what you got to check. So make sure that's good. Okay, and I'll check it if something's wrong. Okay, so we got Y equals negative 3x plus 75. Okay, so let's go to the next page, and we have Y equals negative 3x plus 75. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at finding the revenue function like this. Okay, so we got that. Now what that is that's the price demand function. So we're actually going to write this like this. We've sketched that, and then we're going to do, let's see, we did a linear on relating this. Okay, now see, that is what I already gave you. Now the thing on that is that's how a business would do that. They would collect data, and then they would use a regression. They would plot it and see if it's linear, and if it was, they would find that answer. Okay, so we already gave that to you, but I wanted to remind you how you do that. Okay, so what we have is this. Let's write this down. P is equal to negative 3x plus 75. That's what you were given, like that. Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to find the revenue. Okay, you got to know the formula. If you know the formula, it's a piece of cake. Okay, what does a business do to find its revenue? Got to know two things: how many things you sell, and then what? How much each thing cost, right? Lemonade, 50 cents a cup. You sold 1 million cups. Multiply and you got your money coming in, right? So it's XP. All right, that's the formula. So what you do is take the P that we already have, which is negative 3x plus 75, and we multiply it by X. So you always just take the price demand function times X, which is the number of things you're producing, and then that gives that to you. So we'll distribute this out. That will be negative 3x to the second, and then plus 75x. Okay, so that is your revenue function. That's how you always do it. Very simple. If you know the price demand function, that's how you do it. Okay, everybody with me? Okay, yeah.
Explain where the extra x came from again. Why?
Okay, that's the formula. Okay, because the formula, remember, we already have P, so you multiply P by X to get the revenue. The way to remember that is revenue is the number of things you sell times the price. X is the number of things you sell. That's what it represents. Okay, you with me there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to fill out this table. Now we're going to do this on our graphing calculator because we're going to find the revenue. So get your calculator out, and I want you to use your calculator on this so that you don't have to do every single thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to y equals and put the revenue in. So go y equals and go -3 x squared and then plus 75x. So we're going to get a graph of the revenue in part D anyway. So we're going to go ahead and start putting that together and use that to fill out the table. Okay. So we got that put in. The next thing you want to do is you want to have your window on here. So go to your window button and let me show you how to set this up. So first of all, we said x was going to 1 to 20. That was a part of the problem. So you want to set up x going from 0. Go ahead and make it go 0 to 20. And then you can scale that probably by 5 would be a logical way to scale that. Okay? All right, so you want to get that put in. That's usually given. Now you got to figure out y. Students always ask me, how do you know y? Here's how I know. You want to do this. Go second graph and look at your table and start looking at the y values, and that will tell you how big they are getting. So if you scroll down here, notice that at 5, you're already up to 300. And if you keep scrolling through that until we get to 20, it looks like the biggest thing I ever see is 468. So what's a good scale? 0 to what? 500, maybe by 100, see? See how I did that? So you want to look at that table to help you figure that out. Everybody with me there? Okay, learn to look at that table. Now go back to your window button, and we're going to do this. We're going to go y minimum is 0, and then we're going to go y max is 500, and then we're going to scale by 100. So that really would be the best way to do that window is just like that. Okay. All right, so I'll kind of slide this window over at the side. Whoops, I always mess that up. So there's your window, and get that put in. Everybody following along okay? Where I am? Okay. Now, if you type graph, we've got a good graph, and the revenue is going to go like quadratic. That's not linear. Goes up for a while, hits a high point, then it starts going down again. This is what we call a quadratic relation. All right, so here's what you're going to do next. If you've got all this in your calculator, what you're going to do is you're just going to use your trace feature to fill out this chart. So what you would do is you would just go trace at 4. Okay, that'll crunch it out for you, and that'll give you 252. So that means your revenue is $252 million. Right there, just write 252. Go on to 8. Type trace 8, and so forth. So if you trace at 8, now you're at $408 million, and so forth. Okay, so just go ahead and keep continuing that. Let's see, at 12, we're at 468. Then we go to 16. Then we're at 432. And then finally we make it to 20. And now we're at 300. Okay, that's the way to do it. Use your technology. Okay, yeah.
When I punch in the number, it takes me out of the graph. So say if I punch in 4, it takes me back.
Now you have to do the trace first.
Oh, so, you have to trace again?
Yeah, usually it depends on the calculator. So if you type trace one time, then type 4, then the answer should come out.
Can't you use the table?
Or you can get it from the table also, exactly. The reason I'm showing you this way, because sometimes you might have decimals and stuff. You should just go trace 4. Oh, it's because the plot's on. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, I'm going to graph it. So try it now. Type trace 4. That's it. You had plot on. That's what caused that to do that. I think
Without the calculator, you just plug in the X.
yeah, if you didn't have a calculator, you would just have to plug in to the formula and calculate. It's just faster to trace it out when you're doing this stuff. Yeah, I think you got, take this and you can take this off. That just is the rest of it. Thank you. Okay, so we have that. So let's go down and let's do graph. Did that work on your trace, by the way, Leo? That work?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and let's construct a graph and do this like this then. All right, so we're going to get everything set up. Again, you got to kind of get everything what it means. So let's see, X was millions. You got to write millions to tell me what the scale is. And then that was like computer chips. Okay, and then the y-axis is revenue. And then you want to say that it's millions of dollars, okay? I mean, you would want to say all that stuff if you were actually presenting something. You would have to get everything put down like that. Okay, now we're going to go out to 20. So I'm just going to have you scale the x-axis, go 5, 10, 15, 20. And the revenue, we're going to go up to like 500, just the same way we did on the calculator. So you could go 100, 200, 300, 400. And so forth like that. Okay, so that's really what you need on your graph is that information. Okay. Now you're just going to plot the points, just estimate them. So you have 172. It doesn't have to be exact. It's just estimation. And then 4 and 252. And then 8 and 408. And then 12 and 468. 16 and 432, and then 20 and about 300. And that's probably good enough, and then just sketch it in like that. Okay, that's your revenue function like that. And that's very typical that revenue takes that type of a path. It increases and then starts decreasing for different reasons. Okay, all right, is everybody with me in what I did on the calculator? See, I don't expect you to do this problem any other way than to use your calculator. You don't need to do it that way in the year 2018. That's the way you're going to do it, okay? All right, so now we're going to move on, and we're going to do the profit function and how that goes, okay? So what you do on part E is the profit, P of X, is equal to the revenue minus the cost. So we just found the revenue. Now I gave you a linear cost function in this problem, so I gave that to you this time. So what you want to do here is you want to go P of X, and that's a capital P. You take the revenue, which we got, and I forgot what that was, negative 3x. What was the revenue? Plus 75x, is that right? Oh, there it is. I wasn't seeing where I had put this on here. So yeah, it's negative 3x squared plus 75x, and then minus the cost like that. So that's how you get your profit function together, because ultimately we want to see where we're gaining profit on this. Okay. So what you do is just like terms. This would be negative 3x squared plus 75x minus 4,000 minus 500x. And that will be negative 3x squared. It looks like you have two like terms. That would be, what, minus 425x. And then minus 4,000 like that. Okay, so that's what we have. All right, so that's how you, once you have the revenue and cost, that's what you do to find profit. Okay, everybody with me there? Okay, revenue minus cost. Okay, that's what I do. Okay, now what we're going to do is fill in the table, and we're going to graph the profit to kind of finish this up then. Okay, so on your graphing calculator, what you want to do, I'm going to take off the revenue, and I'm just going to put in the profit now. So I'm going to put in negative 3x to the second, minus 425x, and then minus 4,000. And I'm going to leave the same viewing window on this, and I think that'll be okay. It's still going to be a kind of a parabola. It's going to be a curve, so put that in. Go ahead and graph, and it'll take on, did I put that in right? Let's see. I didn't change my window. Let me go to my table of values and see. Maybe it changed enough. Weird problem. I gave you a really bad problem is what I did. Okay, I want you to look at this. What does this mean? How would you like it if this was your business? Okay, when you sold 10 items, your profit is negative 8,550. Okay, we have negative profits. That means you're losing a lot of money, okay? Let's go ahead and let's just fill this out. I think when I should have thought more about my cost function. So let's go ahead and just do this. You can look at the table on this, or you can trace. Okay, so I'm just going to fill this in. So it looks like we're losing money on this, which is okay. That happens sometimes. So that would be negative 5748. And then that 8 would be negative 7592. The 12 would be negative 9532. And the 16 would be negative 11,568. And then finally we would have negative 13,700. So this is a bad business model. You're losing money all the way through. Okay, which can happen. That's what a negative profit means. Okay, that's why the graph wasn't showing up, because it was outside of the boundaries of my window. All right, is there any question about what I did on that? This is going to be a fundamental thing that we're going to revisit a lot during the semester. Now, the profit function, I'm not going to even do this. Just put an X through that. Since it's negative, what would happen on this is that whole parabola would be below the x-axis, since it's always losing money. Okay, and that's good enough. Okay. Okay, so let me ask you